In this opportunity, we will learn about the Nicaragua localization for Dynamics 365 Business Central. The Nicaragua localization has been developed in an extension that can be downloaded through the App Source. This means that it is certified by Microsoft Best Practices. This localization brings different fields and functionalities that will allow us to comply with each one of the fiscal requirements demanded by the Nicaraguan Tax Authority. In order to know the localization in depth, we are going to generate a small operative flow in which we buy, make a sale. Let's see the behavior of the withholdings and other functionalities. And finally, we generate some report. Now let's go to the purchasing module and review the options we have to characterize. The options we have to characterize our suppliers in a fiscal way. We are going to enter this example supplier that we have, and apart from all the standard information, we go to the invoicing section. In invoicing, we can establish if this supplier has an identity card, has a unique taxpayer registration, or on the contrary, has a passport. We can add what would be the identity card. Also, we will also be able to relate what would be the type of tax regime. If it is a general regime, if it is a fixed quota regime, or if on the contrary, it is a special regime. Here we will select it. Also the type of taxpayer, if it is an individual or a company. For legal, we will be able to associate the IR withholdings to our supplier as a suggestion. What does this mean? It means that when you are executing a purchase document, whether it is an invoice or a purchase order, and I call this supplier, it will relate to me as a suggestion. The quote, in this case 10% for professional services, and it will add it to the lines or to the document. Okay, in this section I can create as many withholding codes as I want. In this case and for this example, I have two, one for 10% and one for 2%. In addition to this information added to our supplier, we are going to be able to relate and characterize in a fiscal way our customers as well, adding to them fields or being able to identify fields such as type of identity document, the one that is cedula. We place an example number, the type of regime, the type of taxpayer, the type of, and also, if applicable, we will be able to list the IR withholdings. Now let's see these functionalities within the purchase module or the operational transactional process. We are going to enter purchase and we enter a purchase invoice. We enter a new invoice, we select in this case the supplier, and we know the invoice number. And we know the invoice number, we are going to type it and we make a selection of the items we are going to buy. Let's say 100 units of this item. Let's find what would be the withholding in this case of IR associated to the line item associated to the purchase. That's it. This as a suggestion, the same. I can modify it if I wish. Let's remember that this configuration that we added it in the suppliers file. In addition to this, we can also make transactions with an additional tax to the one we normally transact. For example, here I have a selected consumption tax of 15%. We can still select it. This additional tax, we will be able to configure it or set it the product. Okay, for example, here I have this product normally transacts with a value-added tax of 15%, and in addition I can make a suggestion of the selective consumption tax of 15%. When I call this product either in purchase or sale, he is going to relate the additional tax to me. Okay? Once we have verified that all the information is correct, we indicate a preview, and let's see the calculation that the system makes based on this withholding. In VAT movements, we will be able to visualize the IR withholding, in this case of 10%, as we can see it here, with its base and its respective amount. And in the same way, we will be able to visualize the additional tax, the ISC, with its percentage. In accounting movements, we will be able to visualize the distribution of the amounts to each of the accounting accounts. This part is totally parameterizable, that is to say, I indicate to the system to which accounts I want each of the amounts to travel. So we say, for example, that the 10% IR withholding will be stored in the accounting account 88885, which is the one I have set up to receive this withholding amount of the withholding. Ready? Once we have confirmed all these values, we audit the invoice. We make audit of the invoice, we indicate the record, and in this way our purchase invoice is saved. This invoice has a retention that is applied to it. The withholding, proof of withholding, is issued at the moment of the payment of the invoice. We are going to enter the treasury module, the payment journal, and we are going to register the payment of this invoice, selecting in this case our supplier, the form of payment. In this case, I am going to place, as an example, any, and we relate what would be the invoice. We already have. We indicate to accept, and we register the payment of the invoice. At the moment of making the payment, go to the LLB Nicaragua tab and enter the withholding history. The withholding record is enabled when the invoice is paid. The invoice, in this case, we made the payment for this invoice, LLB Nicaragua, and the state is paid. If on the other hand we pay not in total but partial payments, here we have a record that is just a status issued. If we cancel or annul one of these payments, the annulled invoice will appear and it will have the paid status again when the invoice is paid again. We are going to enter in paid, and we are going to print what would be the document of the withholding statement. We have the receipt with all the important information to be identified, such as the name, the concept, the value, the withholding rate, the withholding amount, and the signature fields of the IC client. We will be able to print it. We will be able to send it to PDF, to Excel, in any format you want. Another important type of document to mention in the purchase module is the purchase debit notes. Business Central natively does not have the purchase debit memos, and we have provided this type of document to elaborate a purchase debit note, as you can see on the screen. Here we select purchase debit note. We can link the invoice to which we are going to apply the debit note. We are going to link the products, the units. We have the fields for withholdings and additional tax, and we can register the invoice, in this case the debit note. We have arranged for the debit notes in Word, which are, as you can see them on the screen, and the history of registered purchase debit notes, which is where the record of each of the purchase debit note. Now let's go to our sales module and look at a sales invoice. In the sales invoice, we are also going to find the withholding fields. Here, in this case, I'm going to put any number for the invoice record, any item, and we have the IR withholding that I already showed you how it would be so that the system would know it automatically in the document. And also the additional tax, I'm going to select it. Okay, once we have verified that everything is complete, we show you a preview and we can see the movements of Vati and the accounting movements. This we are going to be able to visualize it in the nature that corresponds to the sale, which is different from the purchase. That is to say, the accounting accounts will have a different nature for each one of them. The accounting accounts will have a different nature for each of the withholdings. Okay? In addition to that, okay, here we are going to register it. In the sales module, we are going to be able to issue the sales debit notes. Although it is true that Business Central does not have the sales debit notes as standard, we have created this type of document. In order to be able to use a debit memo, thus use a debit memo. Okay, here I will be able to relate the invoice to which I am going to apply the debit notes, to be able to relate the items and quantities. We are going to find also the fields of retentions of additional tax and register. We are going to find that we are going to have a debit notes document to work with, which is the sales debit note and a history of recorded sales notes. We have our history, which are storing each of the recorded sales debit notes. And finally, we present our range of reports. We have the official books such as the journal. This journal, we can set different filters for export, as a date range, as a particular account. Export it to PDF, to Excel, to Word, or any other type of export that you want, of export that you wish. We can visualize it. Our journal. We also have the general ledger, which we can also export it to Excel and set different filters. The balance sheet. We can also find the VAT book. And this one we are going to be able to visualize it in print view in PDF Excel. VAT book detailed by supplier and the tax amounts, the tax codes, and so on. We have also the book of retentions, which will keep track of all withholdings applied to the supplier. Here we can visualize them, the withholding book. And finally, the consumption tax book. Consumption tax. Selective consumption tax. And we are going to be able to visualize the tax, the book of selective consumption tax, with all the detail that is required. If you want to get to know us, learn more about our work, we invite you to visit our website where you will find information of all our locations, products such as LLB, retail, trainings, webinars, and much more. I also invite you to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell to be up to date with all our videos. Thank you and see you in the next chapter.